Isn't it fascinating how His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso, brings such a unique perspective to Buddhism? He has this incredible way of bridging the gap between ancient traditions and our modern world. Have you ever wondered how Buddhism can feel so timeless, yet so relevant to the challenges we face today? Well, the Dalai Lama divides Buddhism into three distinct, yet beautifully interconnected parts: Buddhism as a religion, as a philosophy, and as a science. By doing this, he creates a clearer understanding, helping people from all walks of life appreciate its depth. Let's dive into these three components, shall we? Expand your mind with the wisdom of the Dalai Lama. Subscribe for engaging discussions on consciousness and compassion. 1. Buddhism as a religion. Buddhism as a religion offers a path that speaks to the heart. It gives us rituals, ethical guidelines, and a spiritual journey aimed at finding meaning and inner peace. In our moments of searching, those times when we deeply yearn for solace, Buddhism offers a refuge. It's about reaching enlightenment, that liberating state where we're free from the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, samsara. Imagine the freedom of letting go of suffering and embracing true peace. Isn't that something we all want in our hearts? The religious aspect of Buddhism invites us to meditate, chant, and pray. These aren't just actions, they're doorways to cultivating virtues like compassion, loving-kindness, and equanimity. Meditation, for example, helps us develop a calm and focused mind, allowing us to connect deeply with our inner selves and uncover the roots of our suffering. Chanting mantras, such as the famous Om Mani Padme Hum, is not merely an act of recitation, it's a practice that allows us to tune into a higher frequency, aligning our mind with the qualities of compassion and wisdom. Prayer, similarly, serves as a way to cultivate devotion, gratitude, and a sense of connection with the greater forces of the universe. The practice of taking refuge in the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, teachings, and the Sangha, community, is central to Buddhism as a religion. Taking refuge means placing our trust in the path shown by the Buddha, the transformative teachings of the Dharma, and the supportive community of practitioners, the Sangha. This act of taking refuge is both a personal and communal commitment to seek freedom from suffering and work toward spiritual awakening. It offers a deep sense of grounding and guidance, especially in times of uncertainty and distress. The 5 precepts, which encourage lay people to refrain from harming living beings, stealing, sexual misconduct, false speech, and intoxication, provide a moral framework that helps us live in harmony with others and with ourselves. By following these precepts, we cultivate a life of non-harming, honesty, and integrity, which in turn brings about a sense of peace and fulfillment. For monastics, the Vinaya, an extensive code of conduct, provides even more detailed ethical guidelines that help create a lifestyle dedicated to renunciation, meditation, and service to others. The discipline required by the Vinaya is seen as a way to purify the mind and develop the virtues necessary for spiritual growth. Rituals are another vital aspect of Buddhism as a religion. Rituals, such as lighting incense, offering flowers, or bowing before an image of the Buddha, may seem like simple gestures, but they carry profound significance. They are expressions of devotion, humility, and gratitude. For example, offering incense symbolizes the intention to let our practice spread like the fragrance of the incense, benefiting all beings. Bowing before the Buddha is an act of humility, acknowledging the qualities of wisdom and compassion that we wish to cultivate within ourselves. Through these rituals, we transform mundane actions into sacred acts that bring us closer to our spiritual aspirations. Buddhism also places great importance on pilgrimage, which is a journey to sacred sites associated with the life of the Buddha, such as Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha attained enlightenment, or Lumbini, the birthplace of the Buddha. Pilgrimage is not just a physical journey, it's a spiritual endeavor, a way to leave behind the distractions of daily life and immerse oneself in an atmosphere of devotion and contemplation. For many Buddhists, visiting these sacred places is a powerful reminder of the Buddha's life and teachings, inspiring renewed dedication to the path of awakening. Imagine being part of a community where the ultimate goal is the cessation of suffering for everyone. Isn't it beautiful to think that each of us can contribute to the happiness and liberation of others, just by practicing compassion and loving kindness? Buddhism, as a religion, creates that very possibility. And it's not about blindly following rules or dogmas, it's about deeply understanding the nature of suffering and finding a path that leads away from it. The communal aspect of Buddhism cannot be understated. The Sangha, whether it consists of monks, nuns, or lay people, is essential to a Buddhist spiritual journey. Think of the Sangha as a supportive network, one that encourages growth, understanding, and compassion. In today's fast-paced, often isolating world, having a community that shares similar values can be incredibly grounding. It reminds us that we do not walk the path alone. We have companions who are also striving for wisdom and compassion. The Sangha provides guidance, encouragement, and a space for mutual learning. Communal observances such as Vesak, Kathina, and Uposatha days are important opportunities for practitioners to come together, celebrate, and reflect on the teachings. Vesak, for instance, is a celebration of the Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and passing into nirvana. It is a time for Buddhists to gather at temples, meditate, offer alms, and listen to Dharma talks. Such celebrations strengthen the bonds of the community, reminding everyone of the Buddha's example and the shared commitment to spiritual practice. Kathina, another significant observance, is a traditional ceremony where lay people offer robes and other requisites to monastics at the end of the rainy season retreat. This act of giving, known as dana, is a core practice in Buddhism. It cultivates generosity and selflessness, qualities that are essential for spiritual growth. The reciprocal relationship between laypeople and monastics, where laypeople provide material support and monastics offer spiritual guidance, creates a harmonious community based on mutual respect and generosity. The emphasis on community, mutual respect, and shared practice highlights the beauty of interdependence. As the Buddha taught, we are all connected, and our actions affect one another. By supporting each other, we create an environment where everyone has the opportunity to grow spiritually. The Sangha serves as a mirror, reflecting our strengths and weaknesses, and helping us to see ourselves more clearly. It encourages us to cultivate patience, humility, and compassion as we learn to live harmoniously with others. Perhaps, at the heart of it all, we recognize that we thrive better when we walk the path together. The religious aspect of Buddhism is also deeply intertwined with the cultivation of the Brahmaviharas, or the four divine abidings: loving kindness, metta, compassion, karuna, empathetic joy, mudita, and equanimity, upekkha. These four qualities are central to the Buddhist spiritual path and are cultivated through meditation and daily practice. Loving kindness involves wishing happiness for all beings without discrimination. Compassion is the desire to alleviate the suffering of others. Empathetic joy is the ability to rejoice in the happiness and success of others, while equanimity is the capacity to remain balanced and peaceful in the face of life's ups and downs. Imagine how transformative it would be if we all practiced these qualities in our interactions, how much more peaceful and harmonious our world could become. In Buddhism as a religion, we also find practices such as chanting sutras and reciting prayers, which serve as powerful tools for transformation. Chanting is a way to internalize the teachings, to allow their wisdom to penetrate deeply into our hearts and minds. It is said that the sound vibrations of the chants can bring about a sense of inner peace and harmony. Reciting prayers, such as the dedication of merit, helps us to cultivate selflessness by dedicating any positive energy we generate through our practice to the benefit of all beings. Through these practices, we transcend our individual concerns and connect with the larger goal of collective well-being. Ultimately, Buddhism as a religion is about finding a path to liberation and helping others do the same. It's about cultivating a heart full of compassion, a mind clear and focused, and a life dedicated to the well-being of all beings. It is a spiritual journey that is enriched by rituals, ethical guidelines, and the support of a community. It offers a path that is both personal and universal, one that speaks to the deepest part of our being, calling us to awaken to our true nature and to help others do the same. Isn't that a beautiful aspiration? Imagine if we could all bring a little more of this religious aspect of Buddhism into our lives, cultivating compassion, practicing generosity, and being part of a supportive community. The ripple effect of such actions could be profound, touching not only our own hearts but also the lives of countless others. Buddhism as a religion invites us to embark on this journey of transformation, not just for ourselves, but for the benefit of all beings. What could be more meaningful than that? 2. Buddhism as a philosophy. Now, let's explore the philosophical aspect, the part that speaks to our minds. Buddhism as a philosophy delves deep into the fundamental questions. What is the nature of reality? What is the mind? Why do we suffer? It challenges us to look within, to examine our lives with clarity and honesty. The Four Noble Truths, for instance, lay out a map for understanding suffering, what it is, why it happens, and how we can move beyond it. Doesn't that resonate with our desire to find clarity amidst life's chaos? The Four Noble Truths are profound in their simplicity and depth. They tell us that suffering, dukkha, is an inherent part of existence, but that there is a cause for this suffering, craving, tanha. It's this endless craving for pleasure, avoidance of pain, and attachment to impermanent things that keeps us trapped in samsara. But here's the hopeful part: there is a cessation of suffering, nirodha, and there is a path, magga, to achieve it. This path is the Noble Eightfold Path, a practical guide that covers ethical conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom. Isn't it comforting to know that there is a way out of suffering, and that it's within our power to follow it? The Noble Eightfold Path provides a comprehensive guide to living a life that leads to enlightenment. It consists of 8 interrelated principles: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. These principles encompass ethical behavior, mental cultivation, and wisdom. For example, right view involves understanding the nature of suffering and the impermanence of all things. Right speech encourages us to speak truthfully and kindly, while right mindfulness helps us stay present in each moment. Together, these principles form a holistic approach to life, one that helps us reduce suffering for ourselves and others. Isn't it amazing how these ancient teachings can still serve as a guide for living with integrity and awareness today? The philosophical teachings of Buddhism also include concepts like anatta, non-self, anicca, impermanence, and praditya samutpada, dependent origination. Anatta teaches us that there is no permanent, unchanging self, a radical departure from how we usually think about ourselves. We often cling to our identity, our ego, as if it were fixed and unchangeable. But Buddhism invites us to see ourselves as fluid, ever-changing, and interconnected with everything around us. Isn't that liberating? To think that we are not confined to the limitations of a fixed identity, that we can grow, change, and transform continuously? Anatta, or the doctrine of non-self, challenges the very foundation of how we perceive ourselves. In our everyday lives, we tend to think of ourselves as distinct, separate entities. We define ourselves by our names, our roles, our accomplishments, and even our failures. But Buddhism asks us to look deeper. When we carefully examine our experience, we find that what we call the self is actually a collection of changing physical and mental processes. Our thoughts, emotions, sensations, and perceptions are in constant flux, and there is no enduring essence that we can point to as the self. This insight into non-self helps us let go of our attachment to ego, which is often the root of our suffering. By realizing that there is no fixed I to defend or promote, we become more open, compassionate, and less reactive. Doesn't this perspective invite a profound sense of freedom? Anicca, or impermanence, reminds us that everything in life is transient. Relationships, possessions, even our thoughts and emotions, they all arise and pass away. At first, this might seem disheartening, but when we truly understand impermanence, we begin to let go of our attachments. We realize that clinging to things that are constantly changing only leads to suffering. Instead, we learn to appreciate each moment for what it is, without trying to hold on to it. There is a deep freedom in this, a freedom that comes from embracing change rather than resisting it. Have you ever felt that sense of peace when you finally let go of something you were holding onto too tightly? Understanding impermanence also helps us develop equanimity, a balanced state of mind that is neither elated by gains nor distressed by losses. When we recognize that all experiences, pleasurable or painful, are temporary, we become less prone to extreme emotional reactions. This doesn't mean that we become indifferent or detached, rather, we learn to engage with life fully while accepting its ever-changing nature. We can love deeply, work passionately, and care sincerely, all while knowing that these experiences are fleeting. Isn't it beautiful to think that impermanence can actually enhance our ability to be present and appreciate the richness of life? Pratyaya Samutpada, or dependent origination, is another cornerstone of Buddhist philosophy. It teaches that all phenomena arise in dependence on other phenomena. Nothing exists in isolation, everything is interconnected. This understanding helps us develop compassion. When we see how deeply interconnected we are, it becomes clear that our actions affect not just ourselves, but everyone around us. Isn't it humbling to think that our choices ripple out into the world, influencing countless lives? The Dalai Lama often emphasizes this interconnectedness, urging us to cultivate compassion not just for those close to us, but for all sentient beings. After all, we are all in this together, aren't we? Dependent origination also offers a profound insight into the nature of causality. It shows us that suffering does not arise without cause, rather, it is the result of a complex web of conditions. By understanding the chain of causation, we can begin to dismantle the causes of suffering. For example, ignorance leads to craving, which in turn leads to attachment and suffering. By cultivating wisdom and insight, we can break this chain and bring about the cessation of suffering. This is the essence of the Buddhist path, to understand the causes of suffering and to systematically work to eliminate them. Doesn't this give us a sense of empowerment, knowing that we have the ability to change the conditions that give rise to our suffering? The Dalai Lama's approach to Buddhist philosophy is one that encourages inquiry and skepticism. He often says that one should not accept teachings at face value but should test them through personal experience. In this way, Buddhism becomes not just a set of beliefs, but a lived, experiential understanding of reality. This emphasis on critical thinking and personal verification makes Buddhist philosophy incredibly relevant in today's world, where we are constantly bombarded with information and are challenged to discern truth from falsehood. Isn't it empowering to know that we have the tools within ourselves to explore, question, and discover what is true? The practice of mindfulness, which has become increasingly popular in recent years, is deeply rooted in Buddhist philosophy. Mindfulness, or sati, is the practice of being fully present in each moment, observing our thoughts and emotions without judgment. It is a powerful tool for understanding the nature of our own minds and for developing greater awareness of our actions and their consequences. By practicing mindfulness, we can begin to see the habitual patterns of thought and behavior that cause us to suffer, and we can learn to respond to situations with greater clarity and compassion. Imagine the transformation that could occur if we all took the time to cultivate mindfulness in our daily lives, how much more peaceful and harmonious our relationships could be. Buddhist philosophy also offers profound insights into the nature of happiness. Unlike the fleeting pleasure that comes from external achievements or possessions, true happiness, according to Buddhism, arises from within. It comes from cultivating a calm and focused mind, from developing compassion for others, and from letting go of the attachments and aversions that keep us in a state of dissatisfaction. The Dalai Lama often speaks about the importance of inner peace, suggesting that our well-being is not determined by external circumstances but by our mental and emotional responses to them. Isn't it empowering to realize that we have the capacity to create our own happiness, independent of the ups and downs of life? Buddhist philosophy also emphasizes the concept of karma, the law of moral causation. Karma teaches that our actions, whether of body, speech, or mind, have consequences that shape our future experiences. This is not about fate or predestination, but about understanding that our choices have an impact. By cultivating wholesome actions and intentions, we create the conditions for positive experiences in the future. Karma encourages us to take responsibility for our lives and to act in ways that contribute to the well-being of ourselves and others. It is a reminder that every moment offers us the opportunity to create positive change. Isn't it inspiring to think that we have the power to shape our future through our actions today? In summary, Buddhism as a philosophy provides a profound framework for understanding the nature of reality, the mind, and the human condition. It invites us to explore the causes of suffering and to cultivate the qualities that lead to lasting happiness and peace. Through the teachings of impermanence, non-self, dependent origination, and the Noble Eightfold Path, we are offered a path of wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. It is a philosophy that encourages us to look deeply into our own experience, to question our assumptions, and to live with greater awareness, compassion, and equanimity. In a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain, the philosophical teachings of Buddhism offer a beacon of clarity and hope. Isn't it worth taking the time to explore these timeless insights and see how they might transform our own lives? 3. Buddhism as a science. Finally, Buddhism as a science. Now this is where things get really intriguing. The Dalai Lama has been fearless in engaging with modern scientists to explore how Buddhist teachings intersect with modern psychology and neuroscience. Isn't it inspiring to think that a tradition thousands of years old can contribute to today's scientific understanding of the mind? Buddhist practices like meditation aren't just spiritual exercises, they're empirical investigations into the mind. The way experienced meditators observe their thoughts, emotions, and consciousness mirrors the methodical exploration scientists use in a lab. Meditation, particularly mindfulness meditation, vipassana, is about observing the mind without judgment, gaining insight into its patterns and habits. In this sense, meditators are like scientists of their own minds, conducting experiments to understand the nature of consciousness. Isn't that an incredible thought, that we all have the capacity to be explorers of our inner world? The Dalai Lama has participated in numerous dialogues with scientists, particularly through the Mind and Life Institute, which was established to foster collaboration between Buddhism and science. These dialogues have led to groundbreaking research on the effects of meditation on the brain. Studies using fMRI scans have shown that long-term meditation practitioners have different patterns of brain activity, particularly in areas related to compassion and emotional regulation. This suggests that the mind is far more plastic and capable of transformation than we previously thought. Isn't it amazing to think that we have the power to reshape our brains simply through the practice of mindfulness and compassion? The scientific aspect of Buddhism also aligns with the idea of impermanence and non-self. Modern physics, particularly quantum mechanics, has revealed that the universe is far less solid and stable than it appears. Particles exist in states of probability, and everything is in a constant state of flux. This resonates deeply with the Buddhist understanding of impermanence and dependent origination. The Dalai Lama has often spoken about how scientific discoveries and Buddhist insights can complement each other, providing a more comprehensive understanding of reality. It's a reminder that truth is not confined to any one discipline, whether it's spirituality, philosophy, or science, all are paths that lead us closer to understanding the nature of existence. Moreover, the Dalai Lama has expressed a willingness to let go of any Buddhist belief that is definitively proven wrong by science. This openness is a powerful testament to his commitment to truth and the evolving nature of understanding. It shows that Buddhism, far from being rigid and dogmatic, is a dynamic tradition that values inquiry and adaptability. In a world where conflicts often arise from an unwillingness to adapt or change our views, isn't it refreshing to see such an example of humility and open-mindedness? The Dalai Lama's interest in the intersection of Buddhism and science is also evident in his work on understanding the nature of consciousness. He has engaged with neuroscientists to explore how meditation impacts brain function and how it could potentially benefit mental health. The Mind and Life dialogues have explored topics such as neuroplasticity, the capacity of the brain to change throughout an individual's life, which aligns with the Buddhist notion that the mind can be trained and transformed. Through meditation practices, individuals can cultivate positive mental states, reduce negative emotions, and ultimately experience a more peaceful and balanced mind. Isn't it fascinating that this ancient tradition offers tools that modern science is just beginning to validate? Another area where Buddhism as a science is gaining attention is in the field of mental health. Modern psychology has begun to recognize the value of mindfulness-based practices, which have their roots in Buddhism. Techniques such as mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, MBCT, are now widely used to help individuals manage stress, anxiety, and depression. These practices encourage individuals to observe their thoughts and feelings without judgment, which helps to reduce the power of negative thought patterns. This aligns perfectly with the Buddhist practice of mindfulness, which has been a cornerstone of Buddhist meditation for over 2,500 years. Isn't it incredible to see how these ancient practices are being embraced by modern medicine to promote mental well-being? Buddhism also offers insights into emotional regulation, which is a major area of interest in both psychology and neuroscience. Meditation practices, such as loving-kindness, metta, meditation, help to cultivate positive emotional states like compassion and empathy. Studies have shown that these practices can increase activity in brain regions associated with empathy and emotional regulation. This suggests that through consistent practice, we can literally change our brains to become more compassionate and resilient in the face of life's challenges. Imagine the potential for personal growth and emotional well-being if more people adopted these practices. How much more compassionate and harmonious could our society become? Another fascinating aspect of Buddhism as a science is its approach to understanding consciousness. While Western science has often focused on the physical brain, Buddhism has long emphasized the importance of direct experience and introspection in understanding the nature of the mind. The Dalai Lama has often highlighted that the study of consciousness must include subjective experience, which cannot be fully captured by objective measurement alone. This perspective challenges the materialistic view that consciousness is merely a byproduct of brain activity and opens up possibilities for a more holistic understanding of what it means to be conscious. Isn't it thought-provoking to consider that science and spirituality might work together to unlock the mysteries of the human mind? The Buddhist approach to understanding mental processes also emphasizes the importance of cultivating positive mental habits. In Buddhist psychology, the mind is seen as something that can be trained through consistent practice. Negative mental states such as anger, jealousy, and greed are seen as habits that can be transformed through practices like mindfulness, ethical conduct, and meditation. This aligns with the concept of neuroplasticity, which suggests that the brain can change in response to repeated behaviors and experiences. By cultivating wholesome mental habits, we can reshape the brain's neural pathways, leading to greater well-being and less suffering. Isn't it empowering to know that we have the ability to transform our own minds? In addition to its contributions to neuroscience and psychology, Buddhism as a science has also made meaningful contributions to the field of quantum physics. The Buddhist understanding of reality as interdependent and impermanent resonates with the findings of quantum mechanics, which suggests that particles do not exist independently but are influenced by their relationships with other particles. The idea that nothing exists in isolation, but rather arises in dependence upon other factors, echoes the Buddhist concept of dependent origination. The Dalai Lama has often expressed his fascination with quantum physics, as it seems to validate many of the insights that Buddhist practitioners have discovered through meditation and contemplation. Isn't it amazing how these two seemingly different fields can converge in their understanding of reality? The Dalai Lama has also pointed out that Buddhism's investigative approach to the mind is similar to the scientific method. Just as a scientist observes, hypothesizes, and tests theories through experiments, a meditator observes their own mind, identifies patterns, and gains insight through direct experience. This empirical approach is why the Dalai Lama refers to certain aspects of Buddhism as a science of the mind. It's a method of inquiry that encourages open-mindedness, curiosity, and a willingness to revise one's understanding in light of new evidence. This scientific attitude is not only applicable to meditation but can also be applied to our daily lives as we seek to understand our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors more clearly. Moreover, the Buddhist practice of analytical meditation, a practice that involves examining a particular topic or concept in depth, parallels the scientific process of analysis and experimentation. Practitioners are encouraged to reflect on teachings, question them, and test them against their own experiences. This emphasis on inquiry and personal validation makes Buddhist practice a deeply individual and experiential process, similar to the way scientific inquiry is conducted. It's not about accepting beliefs blindly, it's about seeking a deeper understanding through observation and reflection. This approach makes Buddhism highly compatible with scientific inquiry, encouraging a spirit of exploration and discovery. Finally, the scientific approach to Buddhism emphasizes the practical benefits of meditation and mindfulness for overall well-being. Numerous studies have shown that mindfulness meditation can reduce stress, improve concentration, enhance emotional resilience, and even boost the immune system. These findings support what Buddhists have known for centuries, that the mind and body are deeply interconnected, and that cultivating a peaceful mind can have profound effects on physical health. The Dalai Lama's collaboration with scientists has helped to bring these practices to a wider audience, making the benefits of meditation accessible to people of all backgrounds, regardless of their religious beliefs. In summary, Buddhism as a science is about exploring the mind, understanding the nature of consciousness, and cultivating mental well-being through empirical methods. The Dalai Lama's engagement with modern science has highlighted the relevance of Buddhist practices in today's world, particularly in the fields of neuroscience, psychology, and quantum physics. By viewing Buddhism through a scientific lens, we see it not just as a spiritual tradition but as a valuable source of insight into the nature of reality and the human experience. Isn't it inspiring to think that by integrating ancient wisdom with modern science, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us? Integrating the three aspects. By dividing Buddhism into these three aspects, the Dalai Lama shows us that Buddhism isn't just one thing. It's a multifaceted gem, it's a religion for those seeking spiritual growth, a philosophy for those seeking wisdom, and a science for those curious about the mind. It's as if there's a path for everyone, no matter what calls to you most. And that's the beauty of it, it invites dialogue, exploration, and a compassionate journey toward the well-being of all sentient beings. Imagine a world where we embraced all three aspects, where we found solace in spiritual practices, used philosophical inquiry to challenge and deepen our understanding, and engaged in scientific exploration to uncover the mysteries of the mind. Such an integrated approach could lead to a more compassionate, wise, and balanced society. The Dalai Lama's vision of Buddhism is one that is inclusive, open, and relevant to the modern world. It's a vision that encourages us to look beyond labels and divisions and to see the common ground that unites us all. After all, aren't we all seeking happiness and an end to suffering? His vision of Buddhism, one that promotes compassion, critical thinking, and inclusiveness, feels like a much-needed breath of fresh air in today's world. In times of polarization and conflict, the Dalai Lama's message is a reminder of our shared humanity and the importance of empathy. By understanding Buddhism as a religion, a philosophy, and a science, we can appreciate its depth and versatility. It's not about choosing one aspect over the others, it's about seeing how they complement each other, creating a holistic path that addresses the needs of the heart, the mind, and the spirit. What do you think? Could these teachings help us navigate our increasingly complex lives, helping us find peace within and connection with others? Imagine if we all took just a little time each day to meditate, to reflect on our actions, and to cultivate compassion. Imagine the ripple effect it could have on our families, our communities, and the world. It's certainly a perspective worth considering, don't you think? Perhaps, in embracing the wisdom of the past and the discoveries of the present, we can create a future filled with greater understanding, peace, and compassion for all beings.